our lessons. Hebrews 12 and 1 says, therefore we are surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses. And this is the NIV. And the King James it tells us basically the same thing, that this great cloud of witnesses to lay aside every weight and every sin that so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that has been set before us. And you know what? We don't consider this journey all the time as a race. You know, we've heard the saying that the race is not given to the swift, or the battle to those that are strong, but those that have the ability to endure to the end. And I'm here to tell you that in life, trying to endure and live this life and live it by doing the right thing, sometimes it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of us stepping back away from our own self. Because a lot of times in life, you deal with difficult people, you deal with difficult situations, you deal with things that are demonic spirits sometimes, and we find ourselves in conflict and in battle with people. And the Bible warns us and lets us know that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities. That's what we're told in Ephesians chapter 6. And in the NIV, I like the way it says we're surrounded by a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith. And you know what? Sometimes when you're dealing with so much negative in your life, it appears that everybody is against you. But you have to know there are people who are walking the same walk, who are going through the same thing that you're going through, who's living a life of faith, and what is letting us know that you're not by yourself. Because sometimes that's the worst feeling that we get, is when trouble comes in our life, or when things start happening that are unexpected. We feel somehow that we are the only one that is going through that. And I'm here to tell you today, you're not alone. The Bible says there's a great cloud of people who live by faith. I don't know if you remember the story that when Elijah had faced the prophets of Baal, and after that in chapter 19 it says that Elijah received a threatening message, that his life that end of that day would be just like the prophets of Baal. And the Bible says that he went into a state of depression, that he went up under a juniper tree and he even asked that God would take his life, because he was so disappointed because of the highs and the lows that life can bring. As a matter of fact, it is recorded that on one day he was on the mountaintop, and everything went good, and he saw God work in a miraculous and an awesome way, that not only did he see it, but there was a great cloud of people of Israel and those who had been worshiping Baal, who cried out that God is number one, because the competition was to see if Baal was God or if God of Israel was God. And see, sometimes in life, even in the greatest victories that we have, Satan is waiting. In other words, there's a saying that I have: every level is a new devil. You see, because Satan understood that he couldn't stop what God was getting ready to do in the future for Elijah. But if Elijah stopped himself based on the fact that after he had a great victory, now it seems that trouble has reared its ugly head. And so with these great cloud of witnesses, that is part of our testimony, is to be there for our brothers and sisters and let them know that if God did it before, God can do it again. He was afraid of this woman called Jezebel because she was known as a ruthless woman. She was known as a woman that would not stop until she saw her enemies defeated. And Elijah, out of all that he had faced, 450 prophets of Baal, he was afraid of this woman just based on her reputation. So the Bible says these great cloud of witnesses let us throw off everything that hinders us and the sins that so easily catch us up. Now, there is always that one thing that we have to deal with in life that is part of what we call a stronghold. Something that we have struggled with most of our life. Now, we've done good with other things. We've got rid of this habit and that habit and this fault and that fault, but it's always one thing. As a matter of fact, with Job, he was considered God in the conversation with the enemy. He said, have you considered my servant Job? There is none that is like him. But Job had one thing. He feared God not because of the respect and the reverence he had for God. He feared God because he feared that God's anger and wrath would cause him one day to face really terrible and trials and tribulations in his life. And so he prayed all the time just in case his kids sin or he sinned. And what God's whole message was to Satan is, even with all that you're doing, one of the things, you're using this as a test to see him fail. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this for as an opportunity to break the one thing that will make him whole and perfect, and that was fear. Because it said at the end of chapter 2 that Job's words was, the thing that I feared has finally come upon me. And don't you know that sometimes in life we have to overcome fear? Sometimes that's that easy thing that overtakes us. That's that difference of us maximizing our full potential. And that's sometimes the thing that holds us back because we know what the truth is. We know what the promise is. We see the opportunity, but sometimes fear will creep up in us and make us feel that we can't go any further than what we already gone.